You ever meet someone so obsessed with control they accidentally destroy their own life, trying to prove a point? The sharp smell of burnt plastic hit me before I even opened my front door. Then came the flashing red and blue lights reflecting across my living room walls like a thunderstorm trapped inside glass. I glanced at the clock on the microwave. 2:13 a.m. perfect. Because apparently Vanessa Whitmore had finally decided tonight was the night she was going to make me the villain of Willow Creek Estates. I stepped outside barefoot onto cold concrete and immediately saw my pickup truck sitting crooked in the driveway, red spray paint dripping down the driver's side door like fresh rust. Someone had smashed one of the work lights mounted above the garage too, leaving tiny shards of glass glittering across the pavement under the patrol car headlights. The humid Texas air carried the smell of aerosol paint, hot engine exhaust, and Vanessa's expensive floral perfume all at once. And there she stood near the curb in a white cashmere sweater, holding her phone up vertically, recording me before I'd even said a word. Her smile looked practiced, controlled, like she'd rehearsed this whole scene in her bathroom mirror. "Officer," she said loudly, making sure the camera caught her concerned expression. "That's him right there. He's been threatening the neighborhood for weeks." I just stared at her for a second. Not angry, not confused, just tired. Because the thing about people like Vanessa is they mistake silence for weakness every single time. One of the officers stepped toward me carefully. Mid-40s. Buzz cut. Calm eyes. His flashlight swept across my driveway, the damaged light fixture, the spray paint, then slowly drifted upward toward the corners of my house. I watched the exact moment his expression changed. His eyes locked onto the black dome cameras mounted under the roofline. 4 of them. One facing the driveway, one facing the street, one infrared unit above the garage, and one hidden inside the porch light housing. The officer looked back at me, then at Vanessa, then back at the cameras again. "Sir," he asked quietly, "these recording right now?" The faintest hum came from the server rack inside my garage workshop behind me. Cooling fans, storage arrays, automated backup systems. 22 years designing municipal surveillance infrastructure teaches you 2 important things. First, cameras catch everything. Second, people stop noticing cameras after about 3 days. Vanessa answered before I could. "Well, obviously he records everybody," she snapped. "It's invasive. Half the neighborhoods complained about him." That was a lie, and she knew it. But lies always sound confident right before they collapse. The officer kept staring at the camera above my garage. "Ma'am," he said slowly, "do you happen to know how long these systems store footage?" I could actually hear Vanessa hesitate. Just for half a second. Barely noticeable. But it was there. The night air suddenly felt electric against my skin. Because what she didn't know, what none of them knew, was that every second of this cul-de-sac had already been backed up 3 separate times before the police even arrived. And somewhere inside that footage was the exact moment Vanessa Whitmore crossed a line she could never uncross. The officer asked me to unlock the garage, and the second the metal door rattled upward, the smell of machine oil, warm electronics, and sawdust rolled into the driveway like a wave. Vanessa actually took a step back. Most people did the first time they saw the place. Workbench along the left wall. Shelves stacked with wiring spools and voltage testers. 3 monitors glowing softly above a steel desk in the corner. And behind tempered glass beside the server rack sat rows of blinking storage drives humming steadily in the dark like a heartbeat. I could hear the cicadas buzzing in the trees while the officers looked around. One of them whistled quietly. "This all yours?" he asked. "Built most of it myself," I said. Vanessa folded her arms immediately. "See? This is exactly what I have been reporting to the HOA. Industrial equipment inside a residential neighborhood." The officer ignored her completely. Smart man. He walked toward the monitor wall where 4 separate camera feeds showed different angles of the cul-de-sac in crystal. Clear detail. Street, sidewalk, driveway, mailboxes, timestamps running in the corner down to the second. The younger officer leaned closer. "These cameras caught whoever vandalized your truck?" I looked at Vanessa for the first time since stepping outside. Her smile had faded just a little. "Probably," I answered calmly. "Depends how far back you want to go." That was the moment she realized something had shifted. You could actually see it in her posture. The confidence draining slowly out of her shoulders while the officers suddenly became much more interested in my side of the story. Funny how quickly authority changes direction when evidence enters the room. I bought this house 3 years earlier after my divorce finalized. Quiet subdivision outside Fort Worth. Small lots. Identical mailboxes. Perfect lawns trimmed like military haircuts. The kind of neighborhood where people smiled politely while filing complaints behind closed doors. I was not looking for friends when I moved in. I was looking for silence. My father had been an electrician for 36 years. Hard hands. Work boots by the back door every night. He taught me wiring before I could legally drive. Said electricity rewards patience and punishes arrogance. Turns out people work the same way. After high school, I spent almost 2 decades building surveillance systems for municipal buildings, transit hubs, parking structures, and county facilities across Texas. Cameras, motion sensors, remote access networks. The invisible systems everybody ignores until something goes wrong. Eventually, I started my own contracting business. Good money, long hours. Then came the divorce. My ex-wife wanted downtown restaurants and rooftop parties. I preferred garages that smelled like cedar wood and motor oil. Life splits quietly sometimes. No screaming. No dramatic ending. Just two people waking up one morning realizing they no longer fit together. So I bought this house with cash from the business sale and disappeared into routine. Coffee at 5:30. Workbench by 6. Local contract jobs during the day. Quiet evenings rebuilding old radios or restoring tools in the garage. Peaceful. Predictable. Exactly how I wanted it. Then Vanessa Whitmore decided my existence offended her sense of neighborhood perfection. She became HOA president 6 months after I moved in. White Lexus SUV. Designer sunglasses even after sunset. Voice smooth enough to sound polite while insulting you directly to your face. She drove around the subdivision in a golf cart like a suburban sheriff inspecting criminals. And from the beginning, she hated that I never reacted. Not when she measured my grass with a ruler. Not when she complained about my truck. Not when she called my garage workshop an eyesore operation during a neighborhood meeting. People like Vanessa survive on emotional reactions. Fear, anger, embarrassment. But silence unsettles them. Silence makes them reckless. And standing there inside my garage at 2:30 in the morning, with police officers reviewing camera footage frame by frame, I could already tell Vanessa Whitmore was about to become very reckless indeed. The footage took less than 30 seconds to change the entire mood inside my garage. The older officer leaned closer to the monitor while Vanessa stood frozen near the workbench, gripping her phone so tightly her knuckles turned pale under the fluorescent lights. I scrubbed backward through the timeline with my mouse until the timestamp hit 1:47 a.m. There she was. White Lexus creeping slowly down the cul-de-sac with the headlights off. The driveway camera caught every detail in perfect resolution. Driver door opening. Vanessa stepping out in oversized sunglasses even though it was the middle of the night. A black hoodie pulled over perfectly styled blonde hair. Red spray paint can in one hand. Phone in the other. The younger officer actually sighed under his breath. "Ma'am," he said carefully. "You told dispatch you witnessed vandalism after hearing suspicious activity." Vanessa immediately crossed her arms. "Well, obviously I came outside to investigate after I saw someone damaging property." I clicked forward 3 more seconds. The monitor showed her spraying the side of my truck herself. Silence hit the garage so hard I could hear the soft electrical buzz from the overhead lights. Then came the best part. Vanessa glanced directly up toward the garage camera before continuing like she genuinely believed she controlled the narrative. That kind of confidence does not come from intelligence. It comes from years of nobody challenging you. "This is harassment," she snapped suddenly. "He records the entire neighborhood. People feel unsafe." The older officer finally looked annoyed. "Ma'am, these cameras are pointed at his property and public access areas. Completely legal." Her jaw tightened so fast I thought I heard her teeth click. And there it was again. That look. The same one she gave people during HOA meetings whenever reality refused to obey her. I had seen it 6 months earlier during the infamous mailbox incident. That was the first time I realized Vanessa Whitmore was not enforcing rules because she cared about the neighborhood. She enforced rules because control made her feel important. It started with a violation notice taped to my front door for having a mailbox painted in a non-approved satin black finish. I remember standing outside in 98-degree heat reading the letter while the smell of fresh-cut grass drifted through the subdivision. My mailbox was the exact same color it had been when I bought the house. Vanessa fined me $75 anyway. Then came the driveway complaint because my pickup truck leaked 2 drops of oil near the curb after a transmission repair. Then another violation because she claimed my garage door stayed open too long during weekends. Apparently, the sight of a workbench lowered property values now. She especially hated my truck. 20-year-old Ford F-250. Dark gray. Dented rear bumper. Ladder rack on top. To Vanessa, it represented everything she wanted removed from Willow Creek Estates. Working hands. Tools. Blue-collar life. She once stopped her golf cart directly in front of my driveway while I was unloading lumber and actually said, "Some of us invested in this neighborhood to escape industrial aesthetics." Industrial aesthetics. That is what she called a man carrying plywood into his own garage. I remember the smell of rain on hot pavement that evening while she drove away smiling like she had won something. Most people in the neighborhood avoided conflict with her entirely. Mr. Peterson across the street repainted his shutters 3 separate times because Vanessa kept changing approved color guidelines. A retired couple down the block removed their wheelchair ramp after receiving daily notices about non-conforming structural additions. Nobody fought back because fighting back meant becoming her next obsession. But the real problem with people who spend years controlling small environments is they start believing they are untouchable everywhere else too. And now Vanessa Whitmore was standing inside my garage at nearly 3 in the morning while 2 police officers watched her commit property vandalism in ultra-high definition from 3 separate camera angles. Vanessa left my garage without another word that night, but the smell of her perfume lingered long after the police cruisers disappeared from the cul-de-sac. Funny thing about people who spend years humiliating others in public. The moment they finally get exposed themselves, they cannot handle the silence. By 8 the next morning, my phone started vibrating nonstop on the workbench beside my coffee mug. Unknown numbers. HOA emails. Neighborhood group notifications. Somebody had already posted partial screenshots from the police interaction online. Not the vandalism footage, of course. Just blurry pictures of patrol cars outside my house with captions about ongoing disturbances and unsafe surveillance behavior. Vanessa was trying to regain control before facts spread faster than gossip. I stood in my garage listening to the soft crackle of bacon from the kitchen while the monitor wall cycled through overnight footage automatically. Same quiet subdivision. Sprinklers hissing across perfect lawns. Joggers passing mailboxes. Life continuing normally while one woman panicked behind the scenes. Then the first official email arrived. Subject: Emergency HOA Compliance Review. Vanessa claimed my security system violated community privacy standards and demanded immediate removal of all commercial-grade monitoring equipment within 72 hours. Attached were 7 separate violation notices. Excessive exterior wiring. Unauthorized lighting equipment. Industrial workspace activity. Vehicle aesthetic degradation. I actually laughed out loud reading that one. Vehicle aesthetic degradation. Apparently, my old truck had become a criminal offense overnight. The smell of burnt toast drifted from the kitchen because I got distracted staring at the sheer desperation inside those documents. She was spiraling now. Fast. By lunchtime, a landscaping crew showed up unannounced at the edge of my property line, carrying orange utility flags and measuring wheels. I walked outside wiping sawdust from my hands while the Texas sun baked the pavement hot enough to shimmer. One of the workers looked uncomfortable immediately. "Sir," he said carefully, "we were told to mark the area for HOA beautification expansion." Beautification expansion. That was new. I looked down at the clipboard in his hands and saw Vanessa's signature across the work authorization form. They planned to install decorative shrubs and stone edging directly along my driveway entrance. On my property. Without permission. I could hear a lawn mower humming somewhere down the block, while hot wind carried the smell of fresh mulch through the neighborhood. "You might want to double-check the survey records before digging anything," I told him calmly. The worker glanced at my garage cameras and immediately folded the paperwork closed. Smart man. The crew left 20 minutes later without placing a single flag. But Vanessa was nowhere near finished. That evening, she drove slowly past my house 3 separate times in her Lexus while I worked on an old shortwave radio inside the garage. I could hear the soft bass vibration from her SUV long before headlights crossed the driveway. Each pass slower than the last. Predatory. Testing boundaries. Around 9:30, my garage lights suddenly flickered once, then twice. Then everything shut off completely. Silence swallowed the workshop all at once. Fans stopped humming. Screens went black. Air conditioning died. The only sound left was cicadas screaming outside in the humid darkness. I stood still for about 3 seconds before walking calmly to the breaker panel, mounted beside the rear storage shelves. The metallic smell of warm wiring filled the air as I opened the cabinet. Main breaker manually tripped, not overloaded. Forced. I already knew exactly where to look next. The exterior side gate camera still had backup battery power. I pulled the footage up on my tablet while standing there in the dark garage. Timestamp: 9:14 p.m. Vanessa Whitmore stepping through my unlocked side gate wearing rubber gloves and carrying a flashlight. Then crouching beside the exterior power disconnect panel like someone trying to disable a bank alarm in a low-budget crime movie. I watched her smile at the camera right before cutting power to my garage. That was the moment I finally understood something important about Vanessa Whitmore. She did not think rules applied to her anymore. And people who stop fearing consequences eventually hand you all the evidence you could ever need. The next morning smelled like rain and overheated asphalt. Thick gray clouds hung low over Willow Creek Estates while I sat alone inside my garage replaying the side gate footage for probably the 50th time. Vanessa moving carefully through my yard. Flashlight in one hand. Rubber gloves. Looking over her shoulder before touching my electrical panel like she was dismantling a bomb instead of committing trespassing in a suburban neighborhood. What fascinated me was not the stupidity. It was the confidence. She genuinely believed nobody would ever hold her accountable. That kind of arrogance does not appear overnight. It grows slowly when small abuses keep getting rewarded. I leaned back in my chair listening to the low hum of the backup power system beneath the workbench. The garage lights had already come back online thanks to the secondary battery circuit I installed years earlier. Old habits from municipal contract work. Critical systems always need redundancy. Outside, sprinklers clicked rhythmically across identical green lawns while neighbors drove to work pretending none of this involved them. But I knew something they did not. People like Vanessa always leave patterns. And patterns leave evidence. I opened the Homeowners Association portal on my monitor and started digging. Years ago, the HOA hired my old company to upgrade their community security network after a series of mailbox thefts. I personally configured the remote backup architecture myself. Vanessa thought deleting files from the office system erased everything permanently. It did not. Every camera feed mirrored automatically to an off-site archive server hidden behind an administrative maintenance layer most people would never notice, including her. The keyboard clicked softly beneath my fingers while I pulled archived logs 1 month at a time. Parking disputes, pool complaints, delivery truck footage, hours and hours of meaningless suburban activity. Then the pattern appeared. Vanessa deleting selected footage manually every few weeks. Always late at night. Always after specific incidents involving residents who later received violation notices. My coffee turned cold beside the keyboard while I kept scrolling. Timestamp after timestamp. Deleted clips restored from backup. Neighbors getting cited for parking violations after her own golf cart blocked driveways. Landscaping crews entering private property before sudden fines for unapproved modifications. One elderly man receiving repeated notices about trash bins despite security footage showing Vanessa herself dragging them into visible areas before inspection photos. The woman was manufacturing violations. The realization settled into my stomach slowly like wet concrete. This was not random harassment anymore. This was a system. Then I found the financial records. That part almost impressed me. Small transfers hidden under maintenance reimbursements. Landscaping expenses rounded unusually high. Emergency beautification costs approved without board votes. The smell of dust from the server fans filled the garage while I cross-referenced contractor names against county business registrations. 3 companies kept appearing repeatedly, all connected to the same address 20 miles away, registered to Vanessa's younger brother. I sat there staring at the screen while thunder rolled faintly in the distance outside. Millions of dollars in neighborhoods across America probably disappear exactly this way. Tiny amounts at a time, hidden inside boring paperwork nobody reads carefully. But Vanessa made one mistake. She got greedy while believing everyone around her was too intimidated to look closer. Around noon, somebody knocked hard against my front door. 3 sharp hits. Impatient. I already knew who it was before opening it. Vanessa stood there wearing oversized sunglasses despite the dark storm clouds gathering overhead. Her perfume hit first. Sweet and artificial like flowers sprayed with chemicals. "You need to stop telling people lies about me," she said immediately. No greeting. No hesitation. Just panic hiding behind anger. I leaned against the doorframe calmly. Interesting choice of words. Her jaw tightened. "The board is reviewing legal action against your surveillance equipment." I could hear distant thunder again while humid wind rattled tree branches overhead. "You entered my property last night," I said quietly. "That footage is backed up in 4 separate places now." For the first time since moving into Willow Creek Estates, Vanessa Whitmore looked genuinely nervous. Just for a second. Tiny movement. Barely visible. But I saw it. And once fear finally enters people like her, they start making very expensive mistakes. After that conversation at my front door, Vanessa stopped pretending to be calm. The neighborhood could feel it too. Willow Creek Estates suddenly had the nervous energy of a place waiting for a thunderstorm to hit. HOA emails started arriving almost daily now. Emergency notices. Community alerts. Passive-aggressive reminders about maintaining standards during periods of disruption. She never mentioned my name directly anymore, but everybody knew exactly who she meant. I let her keep going. That was the important part. I did not argue. I did not threaten lawsuits. I did not upload footage online or knock on neighbors' doors trying to expose her. I just kept documenting everything while the quiet hum of the server rack filled my garage every night like steady breathing. Because once people realize they are losing control, they start overplaying their hand. And Vanessa Whitmore was already halfway there. 3 days later, I came home from a supply run and immediately noticed the orange sticker on my truck window. Tow warning. Unauthorized commercial vehicle. Subject to removal within 24 hours. I stood there in the afternoon heat staring at the paper while sweat rolled slowly down the back of my neck. The smell of fresh asphalt drifted from a nearby repaving project outside the subdivision entrance. My truck was legally parked in my own driveway. Registered. Insured. Fully compliant with county code. Vanessa knew that. The warning was not about rules anymore. It was bait. And she expected me to react emotionally. Instead, I walked inside the garage, placed the warning sticker carefully into a plastic evidence sleeve, and mounted a second camera facing directly toward the driveway gate. Then I waited. The next evening, heavy rain rolled through North Texas just after midnight. Thunder rattled windows hard enough to shake the tool hooks hanging above my workbench. Water hammered rooftops while lightning flashed blue across the cul-de-sac every few seconds. Perfect weather for people hoping nobody notices what they are doing. Around 1:17 in the morning, my driveway motion alert activated. I opened the live feed on the monitor wall, and there it was. Tow truck headlights crawling slowly through the rain toward my house. Amber hazard lights reflecting across wet pavement. The driver stepped out wearing a yellow rain jacket, while another figure climbed from the passenger's side, holding an umbrella. Vanessa. Even through the storm, I recognized the posture immediately. One hand on her hip. Phone already recording. The tow driver hesitated beside my truck for several seconds before approaching the gate. Smart enough to feel uncomfortable. Not smart enough to leave. I watched rainwater stream down the camera lens while they examined the property. Then Vanessa pointed directly at my truck and nodded impatiently like a manager demanding expired groceries be removed from a shelf. The driver finally backed the tow truck into position. Hydraulic equipment hissed softly under the storm noise. Then his flashlight passed across the rear side window of my truck. He stopped moving instantly. Even through the monitor, I could see him reading the decal printed in reflective white lettering beside the toolbox compartment. City of Fort Worth electrical calibration equipment, authorized contractor access required. The tow driver lowered the flashlight slowly. Vanessa walked closer, clearly irritated by the delay. I could not hear their conversation over the rain, but I did not need to. Body language tells the truth faster than words ever do. The driver shook his head immediately. Vanessa crossed her arms. He pointed at the city decal again. She stepped closer to read it herself. Then came the moment that almost made me laugh out loud. Vanessa physically looked toward my garage camera mounted under the roofline. Right at it. Standing in the rain beside a tow truck she had illegally summoned to remove a vehicle connected to municipal infrastructure contracts. She realized too late she had walked directly into another documented violation. And instead of leaving quietly like a normal person, she pulled out her phone and started arguing with the tow driver in the middle of my driveway, while 6 separate cameras recorded every second from multiple angles. By Friday afternoon, the entire neighborhood felt tense enough to crack. You could see curtains moving when cars drove past my house. People walking their dogs suddenly slowed down near the mailbox cluster just to exchange whispers. Even the air felt strange, heavy, humid, like the whole subdivision knew something ugly was about to surface. Then the emergency HOA meeting notice hit every resident's inbox at exactly 4:03 p.m. Community Safety Review and Resident Conduct Hearing. Mandatory attendance encouraged. I almost admired Vanessa's commitment to public humiliation. Almost. The meeting started at 7 inside the Willow Creek Clubhouse, a beige stucco building that always smelled faintly of burnt coffee and chlorine from the neighborhood pool outside. Rainwater still dripped from tree branches after the storm the night before, while headlights filled the parking lot one car at a time. I arrived 5 minutes early carrying a small black hard case under one arm. Same case I used for city equipment diagnostics back when I still worked municipal contracts. People stared when I walked in. Some looked nervous. Others looked curious. Vanessa sat at the front folding table beneath fluorescent lights, wearing a navy blazer and pearl necklace like she was about to run for office instead of defend herself from multiple documented violations. 2 other HOA board members sat beside her, flipping nervously through paperwork. Neither would look directly at me. Smart choice. The room smelled like wet jackets and cheap carpet cleaner. I took a seat quietly near the back wall, while residents filled metal chairs row by row. Then Vanessa stood up with that same polished smile she always used before trying to destroy somebody publicly. "Thank you all for attending this important community discussion," she began smoothly. "Recent disruptive behavior has raised concerns regarding neighborhood safety, unauthorized surveillance, and hostile resident interactions." There it was. She still thought she controlled the room. I watched several neighbors glance toward me uncomfortably while rain tapped softly against the clubhouse windows. Vanessa continued talking about community standards for nearly 10 minutes. Professionalism, property values, resident harmony. Every sentence sounded rehearsed. Then she clicked a remote and projected enlarged photos of my garage workshop onto the wall behind her, like she was presenting evidence in court. "Commercial operations inside residential zoning areas create liability exposure," she announced confidently. "Additionally, extensive recording equipment raises serious privacy concerns." The silence inside that room felt thick enough to hold in your hands. I waited until she finally asked, "Would Mr. Cole like to respond?" Then I stood up slowly, carrying the black hard case to the center table while 40 people watched. The metal latches snapped open sharply in the quiet room. Inside sat a compact projector, external drive, and printed evidence folders stacked neatly in labeled sections. Vanessa stopped smiling immediately. I connected the projector without saying a word. The soft whir of cooling fans filled the clubhouse while the screen behind her flickered. Black for 2 seconds. Then the footage started. First clip. Vanessa spray painting my truck at 2 in the morning. Audible gasps spread across the room instantly. Second clip. Vanessa entering my side gate and tampering with my electrical panel during a rainstorm. Third clip. Restored HOA security footage showing her dragging a resident's trash bins into the street before photographing violations herself. Fourth clip. Financial records cross-referenced beside landscaping invoices connected directly to her brother's companies. The room went dead silent except for the projector fan humming softly beneath fluorescent lights. Vanessa looked frozen. Completely frozen. One board member removed his glasses slowly and stared down at the printed invoices in front of him like he suddenly regretted every decision that led him into that chair. Then came the final clip. The tow truck footage from the night before. Rain pouring across the driveway. Vanessa arguing beside my truck while the city contractor decal reflected clearly in the headlights. The tow company owner himself stood up from the back row at that exact moment. I had not even noticed him enter earlier. "She told us the vehicle was abandoned," he said quietly. "If we touched city-contracted equipment without authorization, we could lose our operating permit." Vanessa finally snapped then. "This is illegal," she shouted suddenly. He hacked HOA systems. But panic ruins people faster than evidence ever does. because one of the board members interrupted her immediately. "Vanessa," he asked carefully, "why were you deleting security footage from HOA archives?" And just like that, the entire room turned against her all at once. The clubhouse erupted into noise all at once after that question. Chairs scraping across tile floors. People talking over each other. Somebody near the back muttering, "I knew something was off with those fines." The smell of burnt coffee and wet jackets suddenly felt suffocating inside the packed room, while Vanessa stood frozen beside the projector screen like a politician watching election numbers collapse in real time. One of the board members, an older accountant named Richard Hale, picked up the printed financial reports with visibly shaking hands. "These landscaping reimbursements," he said carefully, adjusting his glasses. "Why are they all routed through Whitmore Property Services?" Vanessa opened her mouth immediately. "That is completely standard vendor management." But her voice cracked halfway through the sentence. Tiny detail. Huge difference. Panic was finally winning. Richard flipped another page slowly. "Your brother owns Whitmore Property Services." Silence hit again. Heavy silence this time. The kind that settles over a room when everybody realizes they have been manipulated for years by the same person smiling at them every month during community barbecues. Outside the clubhouse windows, rainwater dripped steadily from the roof gutters, while thunder rolled faintly somewhere farther east. Then another resident stood up. Mrs. Delgado from Cedar Lane. Retired schoolteacher. Quiet woman. Always polite. "You fined me $800 last year over my grandson's wheelchair ramp," she said softly. Vanessa immediately straightened her posture again, like instinct took over. That structure violated community appearance standards. Mrs. Delgado held up a folded document with trembling fingers. County inspectors approved it before installation. Another resident stood up after that. Then another. Complaints started pouring out from every corner of the room, like pressure finally breaking through a cracked pipe. Selective fines. Missing payments. Threats. Harassment. Towing warnings. Vanessa kept trying to interrupt people, but the room had already shifted beyond her control. That was the moment her phone started ringing. Loud. Sharp. Echoing through the clubhouse. She looked down at the screen and suddenly went pale enough to notice from 30 feet away. Really pale. She stepped away from the table quickly and answered in a whisper near the exit doors. But everyone could still hear fragments. "What do you mean, investigators?" Pause. "No, that cannot happen tonight." Longer pause. Then silence. Real silence. The kind that feels cold even in a crowded room. Vanessa lowered the phone slowly while rain tapped against the windows. Behind her, I already knew exactly what happened. Earlier that afternoon, before the meeting started, I had forwarded copies of the restored HOA footage and financial records directly to the County Compliance Office and the City Contractor Review Board. Quietly. No drama. Just documentation. Because paperwork destroys corrupt people faster than anger ever will. Vanessa turned back toward the room, looking smaller somehow. Less polished. Less untouchable. One of the board members finally cleared his throat and spoke carefully into the microphone at the front table. "Pending formal investigation, Vanessa Whitmore is suspended immediately from all homeowners association authority and financial oversight." You could actually hear people exhale around the room. Years of tension releasing all at once. Vanessa stared at him in disbelief. "You cannot suspend me," she snapped. "I built this community." But nobody answered her. Nobody defended her. That part seemed to shock her most of all. Because people like Vanessa mistake fear for loyalty until the exact second fear disappears. She grabbed her purse, nearly knocking over a stack of HOA folders in the process, then stormed toward the exit in complete silence. No final speech. No dramatic threat. Just heels striking tile floors while 40 residents watched her walk away alone. The front doors slammed hard enough to rattle the windows behind her. Then the room stayed quiet for several seconds. Richard looked over at me finally. "Mr. Cole," he said carefully, "how long have you had all this evidence?" I closed the hard case slowly while the projector fan hummed itself cool beside me. "Long enough," I answered. I just needed her to keep talking. 6 months later, Willow Creek Estates sounded different. That was the first thing I noticed. No golf cart crawling slowly through the streets at sunrise. No violation notices flapping against front doors in the morning wind. No nervous silence whenever neighbors passed each other near the mailboxes. Just normal life again. Sprinklers ticking across lawns before dawn. Kids riding bicycles down the cul-de-sac after school. The soft rumble of garage doors opening while people headed to work without feeling watched all the time. Funny how peaceful a neighborhood becomes once fear leaves it. I was sitting in my garage one Saturday afternoon restoring an old tube radio from the 1960s when thunder rolled softly across the Texas sky outside. The familiar smell of solder smoke and machine oil filled the workshop, while classic country music crackled faintly through a speaker on the workbench. My truck sat clean in the driveway again. Fresh paint repaired. New work light installed above the garage. Quiet. Simple. Exactly how I liked it. The investigations moved faster than anybody expected after the HOA meeting. Once county auditors started reviewing financial records, everything unraveled. Thousands of dollars in questionable reimbursements. Selective enforcement complaints. Unauthorized vendor contracts routed through family businesses. The tow company filed its own statement too after learning how close they came to illegally impounding city-contracted equipment during an active municipal calibration cycle. Vanessa tried blaming everyone except herself at first. The board, vendors, miscommunication, technical errors. But digital records do not panic under pressure. They just sit there quietly waiting for somebody patient enough to read them. Her realtor license was suspended pending review 3 months later. 2 HOA board members resigned voluntarily before formal hearings even began. Richard Hale eventually became interim association president and removed nearly half the old enforcement policies during the first month. Turns out most residents never wanted a suburban dictatorship in the first place. They just got tired of fighting one. Then came the final twist. The one nobody in the neighborhood saw coming. Around early October, a for sale sign appeared in front of Vanessa's house. White post. Red lettering. Slightly crooked because whoever installed it rushed the job. I remember standing at my mailbox one cool morning while dry leaves scraped across the pavement in the wind. The giant house she once treated like a throne sat completely dark inside. No Lexus in the driveway. No carefully staged flower pots beside the walkway. Just silence. Mr. Peterson from across the street walked over slowly with a coffee mug in his hand and nodded toward the sign. Guess she finally lost the neighborhood, he muttered quietly. But the truth was simpler than that. Vanessa never understood the neighborhood to begin with. She thought control created respect. She thought intimidation looked like leadership. She thought people stayed quiet because they agreed with her. What she never realized was that most decent people avoid conflict until somebody finally pushes too far. Then all that silence turns into evidence. I finished repairing the radio around sunset that evening. Warm orange light spilled across the garage floor while rain tapped softly against the roof overhead. The restored speaker crackled once before smooth music finally filled the workshop. Clean sound. No distortion. I leaned back in my chair listening to the rain while the security monitors glowed quietly against the far wall. Same cameras. Same street. Different atmosphere completely. And sitting there in the smell of warm electronics and fresh rainwater, I realized something important. Justice rarely arrives loudly. It does not kick doors open or scream for attention. Most of the time it works quietly in the background like electricity inside a wall. Invisible